It was the original high-tech car, first one I ever did a video on. It was a real badass in 2005, but has the state-of-the-art passed it by? Let's drive the 2011 Acura RL and check the tech. Unlikely to pull up alongside an RL today, or any day. The RL is a slow seller, only about 2,000 copies a year. Most car companies pull the plug on a car that sells that few if it's less than 100 grand. In fact, everything in its class outsells the RL, by a lot. But that doesn't make it a bad car, maybe just an exclusive one. Okay, here you can see the biggest problem with the RL, I think, in the marketplace. Have you spotted it? It prints too small. It kind of prints fancy Accord, which in a way it is, but it's a very nice car with some very elegant understated lines. But it doesn't sufficiently shout, "I make more money than you do." Its competitors tend to do that. Here's your LCD, well set back in a little well in the dash, although it's not set back far enough to battle glare all that well, which it does succumb to quite a bit. But that isn't my biggest gripe. My biggest gripe is it hasn't changed in an eon. This is the same crappy-looking map they've had on Acuras and Hondas. Good grief, since what, Carter was in office? The typeface is a disaster. It's kind of jaggy. Sometimes it overlaps black type on a black street, so you get this mishmash in some places, making things hard to read. And no matter where you go in this interface, it's just kind of play school and jaggy. I mean, look at these lines. I do better with a blue pencil. So I'm very disappointed by this. This speaks to an inexpensive car, and it's sitting in their flagship vehicle. And they've had this thing in this car forever. The screen is fairly far away, so of course you wouldn't expect to touch it, and it's not a touchscreen. They don't do that on these Honda Acura rigs. You've got this controller, which is, it's quite good. You roll around this kind of proprietary sort of hemispherical interface, click on what you want, go through the usual rigmarole of city, state, and all that, piece by piece by piece. You can also use voice command, which can be good or not so good, depending on what operation you're trying to play out. Address. Address. I beg of you, address. You do have traffic and weather information on this guy coming in through XM satellite radio. Grayed out on our car because it says the subscription's expired. Not sure what that's all about because we do have XM radio working, but it is a separate sub for the data feeds. That's a good lesson to take away from this. Here's disc and aux. This is the most interesting one. You've got a CD-DVD player. It's a 6-slot right in here. iPod USB. You can put a USB stick or an iPod in there. Obviously, that's down here on this little pigtail that goes into this jack in the console. You've also got your standard mini jack aux in there. Bluetooth streaming audio, as well as Bluetooth hands-free calling, of course. Phone book import as well. AM and FM does not include HD radio, by the way. And as I mentioned, XM is our satellite radio. Now your sound settings show you've got a pretty sophisticated Bose rig here, the usual bass treble, fader, balance, but you've also got a sub-control. Audio Pilot is automatic active noise cancellation. It picks up certain harsh sounds in the car, cancels those out with competing sine waves that are the opposite, if you will. And Centerpoint is a staging technology to put the center of the sound, especially with multi-channel stuff, in the right place. And the oddest thing tied to GPS is this car was the first, and may still be the only, with GPS-linked climate control. So it'll know where the sun is, they tell us, and adjust the air conditioning so it's colder on the side of the car that's getting the sun on it. But I don't know that it knows what the cloud conditions are, since GPS won't tell you that. So I don't know how that works. Scrolling your iPod is pokey. Rotate that knob beyond a crawl down your song list, and you can easily outrun the interface. Missing are technologies like lane departure, night vision, front bumper cams, all available when this car is sold overseas as the Honda Legend, but not on the US spec RL. Now this is not just annoying, it's actually what's called a Helmholtz resonator. When you do that dumb thing with a bottle, Acura took that technology and built it into their wheels. Now here's the reason. A wheel's a complicated little noisemaker. You've got all these vanes and facets spinning through the air at constantly variable RPM. That's very hard to predict. Then that entire assembly is moving through the air in a line as you drive. So a whole bunch of busyness comes here that creates noise in the cabin. So they built in, they say, some kind of a resonator like when you blow over a bottle inside there. I can't see it, but I'll trust them. That cancels out a lot of that noise. Now up front, this guy's got a now 3.7 liter V6, and Honda does great V6s. Happy, willing, smooth. We'll get on the road in a minute. 300 horsepower coming out of this boy, 271 foot-pounds of torque, gets this car up to 60 in 6 seconds flat, while delivering pretty good 1724 mpg. The power goes out now through a 6-speed automatic. Up until this year, they had a 5-speed automatic that was more suited to a tractor. I mean, everyone else is on 7 and 8 cogs now, but at least they've now got 6. And what comes out of that gearbox goes in every RL to super handling all-wheel drive. It's standard, not an option, not a package. First thing I notice when I get into an RL is it's very quiet and smooth. I mean, I'm kind of pushing it hard up a hill here, and there's no intrusion of motor noise and harshness. All those anti-noise technologies I've told you about, plus lots of good old deadening and isolation, make for a very serene spot. So what the RL does, in its powertrain in particular, is have a readiness that a lot of cars don't have. Some cars are very peaky. They do certain things really well in terms of delivering power, but they're not always ready to go in any situation. This car tends to bias in that direction, which makes for a more livable everyday car to me. So I'm gonna take this turn and get some power to it. You can really feel it push the rear end out. I think that's that torque vectoring stuff doing its thing in the back. There's some little display I could look at here, but I'm looking at the road instead. Little drummy over the really harsh pavement in a way that a car in this price class probably shouldn't be, especially one that doesn't have enormous sporting pretensions. But it's a very confidence-inspiring car that has ample power, and, nothing about it is out of class. This patch of gravel in an acute corner at speed is a really good example of super handling all-wheel drive. Just head in under power, steer normally, don't freak. The drivetrain makes it all work out, where a lot of other cars would get real dramatic and inelegant. Okay, let's price a 2011 RL. Base is $48,000 or so, but you're not going to pay that. No, I'm not a car dealer. Because you need some technology in here, and that doesn't include navigation, for example. And as rough as it is, you want to get it factory. You don't want to go aftermarket on this guy. That dashboard's not friendly for that. So, $4,150 for the tech package. That's the nav rig, as much as I'm about it. Adaptive front steerable headlights. You also get heated and cooled front seats, and the rear parking sensors, the rear view camera. Kind of pricey for what you get, but that's how you get it. Then there's the advanced package, which gets you really two things: adaptive cruise control and collision mitigation braking system, which are basically the same thing in two different modes, and for some reason they roll in the power folding side mirrors in that package too.